And the fact that you managed to pull out a Swiss Army knife and like pop it open, whether or not it was the beer opener or the nail file or the blunt little knife that you used to clean out your fingernails, that's impressive.
The Gabby Petito case has saturated the media for a couple of weeks now as the search for Brian Laundrie continues. For many women who have watched the police footage, there is an understanding of how she was feeling, an understanding of her helplessness, and an understanding of how it can tragically go that far. In this interview, my friend LB and I discuss physical altercations between a random attack by a stranger and the courage to remove oneself from a toxic relationship later.
Okay, so here we go. We've already done this once before and I didn't know how to work my computer. So we're going to try again. And this is interview 2.0. So I have here my friend Laranie Thexton, and her and I trained together at TCB in Avoca, Arkansas. And so she has a story that I asked her to share today. And so we'll get right down to it. She's a real estate agent in Joplin. And she started at TCB when she was 15 and
took a long gap in between.
And had a few stories in between. And so she's going to share that with us. And so what is your background in martial arts?
I started at TCB when I was 15, not at the pleasure of my parents. They weren't very happy about it. My mom was concerned that I would bust all my teeth out, and my dad, he was okay with the boxing, but he wasn't really sure about the whole groundwork thing as a 15-year-old girl. But then, of course, he was actually away in the military on, what is that called? Deployment, yes. And ended up calling me being like, so how's the jiu-jitsu going? And I was like, how did you know? He's like, I know you. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. I was like, I love it. So I stayed there until I was, I think 18. And then that's when I went overseas. And so I got to train a little bit in between. When I went in, I was in India for a couple of years and I got to do some boxing there. There really wasn't jiu-jitsu. And then when I went to Qatar, I went to a few different gyms and did Muay Thai. And I got to do some jiu-jitsu there as well. That was really nice. But then I kind of took a break whenever I came back to America and got a little bit lazy for about a year. And then I started TCB again. So now I feel good.
Nice. All right. Awesome. So you were in India and Qatar and you were a personal trainer, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fun.
It was living my best life.
Your best life now.
Being a personal trainer is the best job.
So why did you start martial arts to begin with?
There wasn't like a set reason. I always just thought it would be really nice to be able to be like, I felt like it would make me a badass. When you're 15, you're like, oh, I want to be a badass. I did have like a confrontation when I was about that age whenever I was at the river. And I ended up actually, I think I started that summer. I ended up starting, but I wouldn't say that was the main reason, but it was like one time when I got my ass kicked by a 25-year-old guy. And I was like thinking like at one point, like, yeah, probably a good idea to probably have something. You know how drunk people are at the river on Memorial Day weekend.
That conversation we had about like nothing good happens when like 15-year-olds go to the campground.
There's nothing good that comes out of 15-year-olds at a campground for sure.
Okay. So yeah. Were you in Dubai and Qatar to be a personal trainer? Or you were there for?
Yes, I had gone. So when I left India, I came back to the States. I kind of realized I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in the States, but then my family, they were working over in Qatar. And so I decided like, I would just go visit them. But then when I started getting job offers and I started looking at like what people were offering for pay, I was like, well, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I got to teach them a little, which I mainly kept to, normal training and some classes and things like that. But there was at one point where they were like, oh yeah, you did some boxing and stuff, like teach, like, it was basically like a boxer size class. And it was hard for me. I'm not gonna, it was like the NC music.
Billy Blake's.
Yeah, Tybo.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like I was doing at one point. It was fun. I wouldn't say it was really my style, but I was just like trying to go for it. Like, sure.
Not really getting punched in the teeth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to dive right into it then. So I would like for you to tell me your story of the assault and what happened.
I was in India. I was in Mumbai. It's a city of about 25 million people, kind of all crammed together. So it is relatively safe. I'm not going to say that. I mean, India was a wonderful experience. And out of the 2 years that I was there, maybe a little bit under, There was no problems otherwise. So I'm like, I just want people to know, like, it's not that it's unsafe to travel. It was just, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. So there were some teachers that came in town with the American school, and it was kind of one of those nights where it was kind of showing them around, like, you can order anything, you can order hairspray to your door. But one of the other things you can order is alcohol. So I had brought just brought a little Swiss Army, has like the beer bottle opener and a nail file and like a little blunt knife that's like this big. And so I packed that in my pocket, I guess, and I had my wallet on me, and I ended up going over there, and we stayed until about, I don't know, it might've been like midnight or 1:00 in the morning. And then I was like, yeah, I got to go home. So, and I lived probably 4 blocks, maybe down, maybe less. But I get outside, and one of the guys was saying, oh, well, I'll walk you home. And I was like, no, I got a boyfriend and he's traveling right now. And I didn't think it was a good idea to have some other guy walk me home, like reputation sake, it's kind of messed up. So I was like, no, I'm good. Like, it's fine. It's just a few blocks. I'll be good. I was like, I'm going to take a rickshaw. So it's like a little tuk-tuk, little motorcycle that has kind of a metal encasing on the back that you can sit in. And so I fly down a rickshaw, and we start, because originally the reason I took the rickshaw was I looked down the road and I was like, there's this like long street of buses that are just parked on the side, and it's pitch black. And I was thinking, I think it's a terrible idea to walk down that road. like this sounds like a bad idea. I look down it and I'm like, maybe that's even right. Even if it's a few blocks, then I can walk it. So I flag down a rickshaw. I start talking to him like, yeah, can you take me here? And in a broken English style, I wouldn't say that I was talking like I am now. But we end up getting in an argument, and then we start, I'm cussing, and I'm probably saying some things that I shouldn't. And he's also being aggressive as well, just like verbally. And then finally I'm like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to walk. And then finally he's like, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. Like, I'll take you. And I was like, okay.
So then was he mad? What was he mad about?
I don't know. I don't know if he just didn't want to take me that direction, or if he was just like in a bad mood.
He was trying to take you down the bus.
Well, no, that's where when we were arguing, it was just actually to like take me only a few blocks. And I think he thought like financially it probably wasn't like beneficial for him to drive me like a few blocks.
Okay.
And I was like telling him like, I'll pay you whatever you want. I don't care. Like, he's driving me, I just don't want to walk it
down creepy bus street.
Yeah. But then whenever I got in, he tried to pull in the wrong direction. So then we start fighting for the second time, which you think that maybe the first time I just maybe shouldn't have gotten in. But then the second time I'm like, you're going the wrong direction. And I said, and like there, you kind of know where you should and shouldn't go. And if I'm going in a completely opposite, I was telling him, turn around, like we're going in the wrong direction. So then he gets, annoyed, turns around. And I'm thinking like, I threatened, I'm like, finally at this point, when he said, I like started hopping out, you're not going very fast and there's no doors on it. So I was like, I'm just going to get out. So then I start yelling at him, oh man, I'm sorry. Again, the whole sorry thing. I'll take you. I was like, can I get back in? So we didn't start off with the best relationship, getting the other direction. So then we're turned around. We're going down the bus street that I did not want to walk around. And like right when we get in the middle of the dark bus street, he just slams on his brakes and he reaches around and he just grabs me up by the throat. And it was weird because it's not like I was like thinking what I was doing. It was just one of those things where I think my body was just reacting to it. And so again, I don't know what the hell I did, but I somehow had ended up grabbing this arm and twisting it and pinning it against the little backing of his chair. Mm-hmm. And then this hand, I had my wallet in. So I know that I didn't punch him that hard, but I think it was the shock factor. So I ended up just kind of like swinging around and punching him in the face a couple of times and jumping out of the rickshaw. And I had that little shitty Swiss Army knife beer bottle opener. And I flip it open. I don't know what thing. Did I get the nail file? Did I get the beer bottle opener? Did I get the little blunt knife? But I whipped it out. And of course I was like yelling. I don't know what I was yelling. Probably a lot of swear words, knowing myself. But he went to get out of the rickshaw. But I don't know if it was maybe the loud and he was worried that people would come, or if he saw the little flash of a nail file. But he ended up jumping back into his rickshaw and trying to run me over. Unsuccessfully, thankfully, and then driving off. And it's
like a motorcycle too.
It's like a motorcycle, but it's like covered on all edges. So I mean, it's not super heavy. You could probably, if a big strong man wanted to and was angry, he could probably flip one fine, like flip it on its side.
But yeah, if it would have hit you, it would have It's like a motorcycle, it would have broken something for sure.
Yeah, it probably would have knocked me down for sure and potentially broken something, but I don't really know what his goal was without trying to run me over. Probably that he was angry that we had our like already bickerments. And then I think it was just the shock factor of punching him. I don't know. And then maybe also just being loud and having my little nail file out that it did, I guess, frighten him enough. Yeah, little tiny sword. But it did scare him enough to, I guess, like jump back in and take off.
So right after this, did you have your cell phone or anything?
Over there we had like little shitty Nokia, like chunky phones. I didn't have like a smartphone or anything. And I don't remember even, I mean, at the time, like my ex was traveling, he was in a different city in India. My family had all left India. So I don't even remember if I tried calling anyone or if I thought like I didn't call the police because I was thinking like, well, city of 25 million and I don't even know the rickshaw number. I don't know the guy. What am I going to explain? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, sorry, someone from here that drove a rickshaw, you know what I mean? So I was like, I didn't call the police. And the police are known there for being a little bit corrupt. I don't want to like talk bad, but they're known. It's kind of a difficult situation over there. Wonderful place, like I said. But I remember like I just walked the rest of the way home, finished the bus street off on my own. I was thinking like, what street? Like it's already gotten worse. Like what could, just like might as well just walk the rest of the way.
Were you scared he was going to come back?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think I was hightailing it. Like I was pretty sure that I didn't want to be there. But luckily, like I lived in I wouldn't say like a gated fancy neighborhood or anything like that, but the neighborhood that I lived in was a bit gated. So once I kind of got where there was a church there and I could kind of go through there, I was able to kind of get in there. And it's weird because, it's like with a population that like high, normally this is whenever I got explained that whenever I was moving to India, I worked with an Indian guy at one of my old jobs. And he was saying, there might be one bad person in a city block, but there might be like 1,000 other good people because it's so populated. Right. So it was weird though. I thought like, and now that I kind of look back on it, I'm like, there's like no one in that area, which was really strange. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember even walking by anyone, which I thought was just very odd. Cause I mean, with the amount of apartment complexes and kind of bungalows that were around the area, I figured surely there'd be someone. But I just getting back into my house and remained pretty calm for my walk and getting into my apartment. And then when I sat on my bed, I was just kind of like, what the fuck just happened? You know what I mean? It was like one of those, like I was calm. Like even when I was yelling at him and stuff like that, it's not like I was like crying and like, I mean, I felt like, I don't know if I was just in shock or adrenaline, whatever it was. It was like, I remained somewhat there, but that's when I got home. I was just like a fucking mess. What happened? Like trying to figure out. I don't
catches up.
Yeah. I don't remember who I called. I don't remember anything. And maybe is that shock?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like not really remembering that process. But once I hit the shock phase, I was just like, I was a hot mess. I was like thinking like that could have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah. No, it could have been. Were you shaking?
Oh yeah. Shaking like a leaf on a tree. I was like, my whole body was just.
Your body just caught up with you. You're like, I did it. Yeah. That's scary.
It was really scary. Cause you think like, I don't know. You never think those things are going to happen.
Oh no. Yeah.
You go, I think everything, at least I do, you think you're invincible and you're like, yeah, no, surely nothing that bad's going to happen. But then when it does, it was kind of a weird moment where it's weird that I remember certain parts of it. Like I can kind of remember his face. I can't really remember what I did. I kind of like I remember like pinning his arm and like punching him and stuff, but it's like, I don't remember like, I don't remember like the technique behind it or anything.
Oh yeah, no.
And it's like, I remember like kind of rushing home, but I don't remember like who did I call or what did I say? Or, I just remember just being kind of a hot mess.
Did you tell anybody about it right away or?
I would assume, I think so that I did. That's the weirdest thing. Like it has been so long ago. I would have been 21, something like this. And I'm 29 now. So, I mean, it's been long enough ago. I can't remember primary details of it, but I don't know if I ended up telling my family right then, or if I waited, only because I knew that my family didn't really like, being alone, like, even, okay, yes, I had my ex with me there, and some of his family, but it was like one of those, like, I didn't want to make him panic thinking I was overseas. So I can't remember if I necessarily called them like right then and told them, or if I waited a little bit to like ease it a bit. I'm like, oh no, I'm cool. It's fine. It happened. But I probably could ask my mom and say like, did I call you that night or did I call you after?
Did you have any hesitations during, like, kind of like oh gosh, is this like, I talk with people a lot about, there's like, in my opinion, there's like two kinds of freezes, like the one where it's like, oh, is this really happening? And then you jump into it, or it's a full on adrenal response where you flat out just can't move because your body will not allow you to. And so did you like have any hesitations or anything like that?
I would say that's the first one, like when someone grabs you by the throat and you're not expecting, my body's like thinking like, what is going on? Like,
right.
Is this really happening? And then it was just kind of a switch. And I think that it just whatever in my brain just like kicked into gear. But I wouldn't say that it was like an immediate, like someone grabs me and suddenly I'm like a ninja or anything like that. I think it took me a second before I was like, wow, this is really happening and I don't want it to happen.
Right. What do you think his intention was? Like, was he just trying to put you in his place because he thought you were like, I don't know, uppity female?
Probably thought I was a bitch. But it was, yeah. And I mean, maybe he could have been, I don't know. That's the weirdest thing. Because, it's like probably when it comes to men in the middle of the night and being alone as a female, like you think the worst of what the intentions are. But maybe he was just like, I'm going to show this bitch that she's not in charge. I don't really know what it was, but the look in his eyes, it wasn't a nice one. So I guess I
find that funny. Well, it's not funny. None of it's funny. That's the thing. We all laugh about it. And we're like,
yeah, I laugh about it now. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's crazy.
But there is like, it's a fine line that I feel like sometimes with women that we have to walk in terms of like how we, like you don't want to appear too aggressive or uppity because there's those that want to take you down a peg, but then you don't want to appear too meek and mild and weak, because then you look like easy prey. And so it's like, you've got to maneuver this fine line. I probably would have came up as a bitch that night. I mean, starting off arguing, first being nice, asking someone, can I go here? But then obviously when they start getting a certain way, I'm totally victim blaming you too, right?
I probably was
it's all your fault.
Yeah, I'm thinking like I probably was a bit of a dick, but it was like I just felt like
you shouldn't have gotten the rickshaw.
I shouldn't have gotten in there. I think I look back and I'm like, why the fuck? Like the first time I argued, why did I get in? The second time I argued, why did I get in? Like it just didn't make any sense to me. I was thinking like literally all the red flags were there.
Right.
Just like someone who probably was a bit more of like, especially like asking someone to go somewhere and then getting a bit like heated about taking you somewhere, so like he was already like in a bad mood or something was wrong, but I think I was just really not wanting to walk down that bus.
It's so funny. It's like, you shouldn't have gotten into it and stuff like that. But it's like, I was talking with another gal that I interviewed, and one of the things that we were discussing is like, you're never going to get it right. Like we do scenario work all the time. And it's like, I was discussing with her about a shoot house drill, and it was like, you can come out and you debrief and you talk about everything you did. And literally all you could think of is everything you did wrong, because nobody gets it right in the shoot house drill, or nobody gets it right in any of it. So it's like, okay, I shouldn't have gone in that. But, always hindsight's 2020, you're never gonna, that this guy's gonna like drag you down Scary Bus Street and choke you. Like,
yeah, exactly. Scary Bus Street. It's just weird, those little tiny details where you're like, you can remember like, that's I think just the weirdest thing. Like there are a lot of things I can't remember, and there's like the weird, stupid details that I remember. You know what I mean? It's just like the
glinting of the nail file.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like that must have been it. Like otherwise, it's like, well, I'm like who's scared of that? But I'm thinking like he probably didn't like look at it. He probably just saw something shiny and was like, oh shit,
right?
Or he was just thinking this bitch is so loud and yelling like someone.
Which is great. That's a good thing. Like that's what I tell my kids about, like screaming and being loud and saying things like, if they're being picked up, not like help, but like this is not my dad, or this is not my mom, or something like that, And so, I mean, making the noise, the ruckus is absolutely, I find it impressive, because I just did a video on like certain knives and which one are the easiest to be pulling from concealment, and the fact that you managed to pull out a Swiss Army knife and like pop it open, whether or not it was the beer opener or the nail file or the blunt little knife that you use to clean out your fingernails. That's impressive. Like, that's like, so I mean, that's sharp, because
whatever my body was doing was right. I guess, I'm just thinking like, fuck, like I didn't know, I guess, I remember having this thought, when I was younger, whenever I first started training, because I was thinking like, I'd run to the gym
Yep.
And then I've run back. And then at one point, my dad was a cop in Rogers. So he was like, you got to stop running like after the gym, or you got to stop like at night. If I wanted to go in like the evening and it's dark, he's like, you got to stop this. Cause obviously he deals with people that he doesn't want me around, you know?
Right.
And I was just thinking like whatever happened, like, what if I were, you know, would I freeze up? Would I do something? You know, I never knew, you know, I guess you never know until you're like put in a situation. And it's like, I think there have been times that I have froze up in my life. And then there are times that I have, like this one, that I was like, oh, well, my body reacted, but I wasn't my mind working. It was just my body. That was
Right.
it. You know, my mind, I was completely like, fuck, you know?
That's why I think like running, I mean, even something as simple as like running combos can be so important, because it's just like, oh, well, at least if you have this set up in your brain, that can be almost reactionary, because you're not going to be pulling out just moves, you know.
Yeah.
You'll maybe like be able to string like two things together.
Such
a punch and a kick.
What was that other John Wick? That's what
we're not going to be. That's
last time.
Yeah,
We're never going to be John Wick.
Never going to be Jane Wick. I was telling her last week when we did the first interview that I screwed up. That I remember, like, I was talking to a friend of mine that is like basically been doing martial arts since she was like a fetus. And I was like, at what point am I going to feel like a badass? Like, I've been doing this for a long time, you know, and I have like my 2nd degree black belt, and then I've traveled and I've done all these other classes. And I'm like, at what point? And I'm just like, I'm realizing that, oh, I'm never going to feel that way. Like, I'm never going to arrive. And that's kind of like, oh, it's a big bummer. And it's never going to look pretty either. It's never.
Yeah. I'm guaranteeing whatever I did was not pretty. Like, I'm thinking, like, I didn't look like John Wick doing it. Whatever it was probably some weird flailing, like octopus arms or something. I don't know.
Say when I'm boxing, I'm like, I look like either Rock'em Sock'em or like Gumby. I don't know which one, but it is ugly. So what was going through your mind during?
Okay, I just didn't know what I was going through my mind. I think my brain was just like, I just want to get out of here. Like, whatever it was, that's, I think, I'm shocked one. Like, what does he want? I guess would be another one that was probably just like, this can't be good. And then like, and then just like, fuck, you know, like and then that's, I think, when my body kicked in. And
did things slow down? Like, feel like it was in slow motion?
That's the weirdest part for me. It was like kind of, I don't want to say it was like a blackout moment. Like, I hadn't been drinking, thankfully. That was probably the one benefit that I had, that I didn't drink, actually, even though that was showing, you know, the ordering alcohol and stuff, that I didn't have any. But it was weird that I felt like I just can't, like, it was just like 1 minute I'm sitting there, and then the next second I'm doing something, and the next second I'm out.
Right.
You know, and it was the weird thing about that was, it wasn't necessarily that time slowed down. It was that, like, I kind of missed a time gap, that it was just like my brain was gone.
That's right. Well, I the reason I asked that is because I'll be in some of these things and it'll feel like it's forever, this like long fight, and then I'll get out and it'll be like, oh no, that was like 30 seconds. I was like 30 seconds. Like, oh man. Because I feel like my brain can kind of see what's going on, whether or not I can pull anything off, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Adrenal responses. I mean, we talked about the shaking when you got home.
Oh, shaking. I just felt so sick, you know. It's just one of those weird, like, my body felt weird, my mind felt weird, you know. I just felt super fuzzy, you know, like when you have like a panic attack.
Yep.
That's probably what it was. That might have been what it was. But it's just like I was shaking, and it's like, you know, when your face feels a bit numb and you just feel like I couldn't sleep. I was just like middle of the night, but it's like I can't figure out, like, what do I do? You know, I'm sitting on the bed, then I'm standing up, and then I'm like, you know, it was like, this moment was it took me another 5 minutes to walk home, probably. So I get in, I sit down, I kind of sit there for a second, and then suddenly everything just hits me. Right. You know, and so I didn't quite understand, like, how was I, you know, walking home being like, okay, you know, I got to go, but I wasn't like in that moment until then. And then it was just, everything just overwhelmed me completely.
It's pretty par for the course, it seems like.
Yeah, it was like,
I've had where my son got lost on our property. He's special needs, and we had like probably 40 people looking for him in law enforcement. This was several years ago. And it was like, he was gone for 6 hours, and he had gotten upset because our cat had died, and he went on our trails, and he knows our trails, but then he veered off because my dad had just cut a new one to the back road. And when he did, it veered off. And so he just started walking and he ended up like off our property.
Wow.
And was gone for 6 hours. And so when he was finally found, everybody goes home and we're all like, oh, thank God, I've been crying for who knows, how long. And he was kind of dehydrated a little bit. So he'd had water and we knew we weren't going to go to sleep, but we go into the living room in there and we're all just sitting there and we're just kind of, thanking God we found our son, and all this stuff. And then it's just like, like, and like we all knew. I mean, I knew at that point, I was like, there's not going to be any sleep tonight. Like, he's probably going to sleep, but I was like, wow. And so it was just like, I mean, it was funny, not funny, but my dad and my mom had even gone home and we're just sitting in there. And then all of a sudden my parents are back up here because they weren't sleeping either. And so we're just all sitting around going, laughing, trying to, so
trying to feel normal again.
Yeah, it was just. So did any of your prior training ever go over the freeze aspect of anything, like hesitation or freezing or anything like that?
It's like, did it help or did it
had they ever gone over it before? I'm always curious about this.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I remember that there's like certain things we did to like get us used to knowing what something feels like. I can't really recall like necessarily like reaction time, but I guess the good thing about like TCB is with the training, it's not like we only do mitts or there's only bag work or, it's like there is actually where there's sparring and you can like hit a reaction.
Yep.
So that's the kind of nice thing is like, you don't really, like, nobody likes getting punched in the face, but it's like when you get punched in the face, you kind of like, I don't know, it's like a different feeling. So kind of, I guess, reacting when versus like, just getting like a mitt to, and you're like doing combos and they like smack you a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But like actually like having to spar with someone and just getting punched in the face. I guess it does make you a little bit of reaction training, but I wouldn't say I remember like specifics, if that makes sense.
So then how do you think your previous training went into effect? I mean, obviously,
I had to know. I guess I knew something when I did it. Now, was it correct form? Probably not. So whatever I did was something I felt like that was probably a bit more technical than just like my own reaction. Because if I thought about like someone like grabbing me by the throat, I guess like someone who's never had training's normal reaction, I guess would just be to like stop, like, just panic and grab it. But whatever I did was enough to actually like, I don't know, grab it, twist it and pin it. And then obviously like throwing kind of an odd overhand, what do they call that? Like a redneck hook or whatever, whatever that was.
Billy Bob's punch.
Billy Bob's punch.
Aaron's pretty good too. That I appreciate that about him, because if you have a question about like, I've gone to him with just random stuff where I'm like, okay, what do you think about this? And then the next thing I know, I'm in like some weird knife lesson or something. Or I'm like, okay, I need to know, how can I get faster with, dropping a mag and blah, blah, blah. And then now I'm working with this Glock and a Mantis or shooting a dummy, so yeah, no, he's really good about that. So if you have the random stuff, I always appreciated that.
Yeah. I remember we did, I can't remember, there's one night that I think it was like primarily girls. I don't know if it was that we planned it or something, but I remember there's a couple of girls and he was going over some like, like some more self-defense stuff in comparison to like just like MMA and stuff. But I remember there was kind of the ending of all of this, it was like, you want to get out of certain positions, but it was like every time I ended up on the ground, it was like, now kick him in the face and run, and it was just weird. It's like, that's like one thing I remember from being young was that like one phrase, like now kick him in the face and run, but it was kind of made sense. I was just thinking like, if I did get to out of a position, like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, yeah, let me just like whoop his ass. What I mean? Like, I want to get the fuck out of there.
Right. So, okay. So 911 was not called. And you didn't call anybody else either, because I mean, you're right. What would the point be in a large city with no witnesses,
with no
dark?
With no like, I don't know, like I'd be like, yeah, this is what they look like, and this is like the number of the guy. I literally like knew nothing. I was just thinking like, yeah, it was at this time of night in this city of 25 million with a rickshaw. And I probably should look and be like, how many rickshaw drivers are there in Mumbai? Because then, it didn't make sense to be like, well, yeah, that would have been a long shot. I told my mother, by the way, that I need to take a few pictures of your house because I said your style is sick.
Oh,
and she would adore it. And also I'm looking at an apartment and I also would love to take some tips from you on how you decorate because I want to do this. This is sick.
That painting, it's not a painting. It
I
is so
love that.
awful, right?
I love it.
So that's terrible. So my brother, what happened was, he was a veteran and he did 2 tours in Iraq. And so when he came back, he lived here in my guest room for a while. And he had this really awesome, like, it was so cool. It was like this painting of a sommelier and he was a wine, really beautiful. And so when we added on to the house and then this became the dining room, I hung it up right there. And so it was really pretty and it stayed there for like 3 years until finally like this year he went and like bought a house and he's like, I want my painting back. And I was like, dang it, you're not going to get it back. No, I was like, you left it here. So it's mine. Like I've completely commandeered this painting. And he's like
squatters' rights.
And and he was so mad. And I was like, okay, you can have it. But he even got my kids to like perform an art heist. And they were like, no, we're not going to do this to that. You know, you live in Virginia, like mom is here. And so I told him, I was like, I'll let you have it back. And I knew what he was going to do. Like I fully knew that I was going to get the ugliest painting in the world. And so I said, but you got to replace it. And he was all mad because he was like, you know, his was worth a little bit more than that one. And I was like, I don't even care what it is, as long as it fits the wall. And it's like, not just super crass. Like it can't be offensive. Okay.
Yeah.
And so anyway, and I knew it was going to be something just
ridiculous.
Super random. So that's what I got. And I totally put it in that ugly poster frame too, like ill fitting and everything. Cause it just purposely looks just that awful. So
like, I'm not gonna lie. If I get an apartment, I'm going to buy that from you. Like just as like people walking in, I'm like, what the fuck is that?
So
I love it.
It's a unicorn in a uniform. So how did this affect you mentally or physically?
It made me a little bit more nervous. I'm not gonna lie. Like I hadn't really been, I hadn't been careful, I suppose. You know, like, you know, you think you're young and invincible and you think bad things are gonna happen.
21-year-olds usually are.
Yeah. He was like, you know. And so I think afterwards I was definitely a lot more careful. I really wasn't wanting to tempt fate again. And then I know when I moved as well, my dad had those little like knives that he was buying from, I think somewhere in Arkansas actually, but they're like, you know, the ones you like hook in your finger and they're like small ones. And I remember for a long time afterwards, I was like carrying this. Now it's not like I knew knife work or anything like that, but I just felt like having something like clearly it worked with my little nail file. So surely if I had something else that was a bit better, you know, it would work. So I remember for a long time afterwards, I was carrying like little knives and stuff like that. Even if I had my like little dress on, there was like something on a chain or something in my wallet or my purse. But just something feeling like a little bit more safe, you know,
right.
Not that again, like not that I knew how to use it for necessarily, but it just felt like comfortable, at least, you know, like.
Well, it's funny that you say that because like I literally tell women when I teach, well, I'll ask them like, do any of you all have, you know, do you carry a knife? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I carry this knife in my purse. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to be useful at all. But then you're basically kind of the antithesis of what I'm like, all you have is an Amazon box opener. And you're like, no, I totally whipped out my little Swiss Army knife. By the way, statistically, that is like so slim.
Do you remember that Field of Dreams? That movie with I think it's Kevin Costner, the guy that has like the Lion King voice. What's his name? Yeah, he has the voice of Mufasa. But do you remember when he shows up to his house and he like has his hand in his pocket and he's like, "It's a gun," you know? Oh, yeah. It's like, you know, and he was like, "It's a gun." I feel like that was me with my knife. Like, it's a knife. It really is a knife, but you can't even knife poke through skin, you know. But I felt like I knew what I was doing a little bit.
Letter opener.
Yeah, letter opener.
So, or physically, were you hurt after this?
No, I feel like I was necessarily hurt. I think, like, it's not like, I don't think he grabbed me hard enough to, I mean, like, obviously it was scary and, you know, grabbed by the throat, but it wasn't enough. Like I didn't have bruises or I didn't have any like physical problems that was wrong with me afterwards. Probably punching so oddly. My hand was, I would guarantee it wasn't a proper one, especially having like, I remember I had like my own wallet in my hand, but like no injuries or anything, but I was lucky.
Guilt issues with yourself, blaming yourself.
Well, I felt like a moron. I was thinking like, why the hell was I out at that time of night? Like why didn't I just accept, like, that could have surely been explained, you know what I mean? Like saying like, look, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, like let a guy walk me home, you know what I mean? or just like not getting in the rickshaw after fighting twice. That was probably my biggest thing, was just thinking like that's a moron.
Mm-hmm. You and I have talked about a couple of years later, you were in a relationship and you had a domestic situation where you were hit. And we had talked about how that time was not a reaction time at all, like no reaction at all. And the reason I feel like this is why I'm asking you is because I feel like it's important when you deal with someone that is a person that you know versus a stranger.
Yeah.
In reaction. I interviewed a girl that her altercation was with her brother, and it was pretty horrible. And so I was just curious as to, if you don't mind talking a little bit about that one.
Yeah. I was with someone that I loved, and I always told him like, there's like two things I'm never going to accept, it's cheating and like you lay your hands on me. And I accepted both. And I was not proud of it or anything. Really embarrassed about it actually. And I kept giving excuses every time I explain it. I'm like, well, we had these kind of toxic battles, and it was a lot of cheating and accepting it. And then last time we actually didn't talk about one thing that I'm going to kind of add to this time, only because it's like this is why I kept like maybe saying like, well, I'm not any better, was that like, we'd be fighting and stuff. And, for a long time, there was like no physical altercation. This was years of nothing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, we'd both get crazy. He had threatened to drive the car into a wall, like the normal stuff. It's like embarrassing to say sometimes. But, just like those little things, out of jealousy or out of, just like whatever it may be. But then like years later, it was like, we finally got back together after, a cheating incident. And, it's like I was always so overwhelmed, and I would get so anxious about, when he would leave. And that was whenever it was like another fight about what I like to call bitches. And, it's like at that moment, like, I remember it was I'm trying to remember like the time of day it was daylight. I remember. So before I went to brunch, I guess that's when it was, or it was just in the daytime hours. Remember, we got in this argument, whatever it may be. And it's like, he reached and he ended up lightly slapping me, but I think it was because he held himself back. Like, I think whenever he went up and it just kind of like ended up kind of nicking me more than this. And I kept saying like, oh, it wasn't that hard. So, and I mean, I remember I didn't do anything. I sat there and was, kind of a little bit in shock. And then I was just like, what was that? And then of course, no, I didn't, no, it wasn't like that. And, of course, like, how can I be convinced that someone didn't like smack my face? You know what I mean? Like I could be by him, I could be convinced of anything, like love was fucking blind in that one. But it's like, I kept convincing myself, well, it wasn't really a slap because it like barely hit me and it wasn't that hard. So it doesn't count. And then, again, months later, we move into a different apartment complex. And one night he was leaving and I knew exactly what he was going to go do. He was going to go disappear. And that's when I was crying and I was shoving him and I was telling him he can't go. And, everything got escalated super quickly and I keep pushing him. And then he just like grabbed me and he threw me into a wardrobe, and which is just like the built-in wardrobes on the wall, and then grabbed me again and threw me down on the bed. And that's when I think like, again, it kind of registered in his brain and he stopped. But it was like at that point, I didn't do anything again. I just froze up and I just like laid there and I was just like, and then I keep crying and telling him to come back. And I was just I was a moron, and it's like, if someone else, like if a stranger would have done that to me, I would have not made, okay, maybe I wouldn't have gone all, John Wick on him by any means, but I would have not thought it was okay.
Right.
That was the weird thing, was that if someone I didn't know or someone I didn't like, did that to me, I would, even if they even if they just even touched my face, I would have been like pissed off.
Right.
Or if, someone would have done that, especially shut me, threw me into a wardrobe and threw me down a bed, I would have been like absolutely like mental probably. But with him, I froze and then I cried and begged for him to stay and come back, and that's like the weirdest thing, is that like, who was I, where was my
right.
where was my India person that felt like I could, I don't know, octopus someone. And then here I was doing nothing.
It's wild because one of the reasons, well, there's like a lot of why I started like LD Buffalo and why we started self-defense was we had a lot of foster teen girls that came through the home, and a lot of them, you know, coming from abusive situations, they don't know when they go into relationships later how to draw lines for themselves. And so they never knew, like, it was almost like, well, this is, it's a slow progression downward. And that's why I always like when I tell people, like, you know, how are you going to make progress? We'll just take little bites, you know, little steps. Okay. Because eventually those become big, but that's also how, you know, you end up in those situations. Somebody's just like belting you right off the bat, especially if you come from like a good family or something like that. It takes, you know, like, you know, years of this tearing down thing to where you're like, oh no, I can't live without you, you know, literally.
Yeah. I for some reason thought I look back and I mean, it's like, you know, I don't want to say bad things about people. I don't, even if there's someone terrible in me, I can't say that I've, like, I try to look back and be like, oh, you know, I don't blame him. I don't have any hate towards him and things like this. But it's just like, luckily I feel like I'm a mentally stronger and healthier person now, but then I had been like, I don't want to say like manipulated and like, because, you know, it's like you don't want to talk bad about someone and say like something bad about them. Cause, you know, it's like, I don't want to think like, oh, he's a bad person. Like I loved parts of him and aspects of him. Other parts and aspects were a bit crazy and toxic. And I want to say, like, was it us together? Was that the problem? Or is he different with somebody else? Is he the same with somebody else? You know? And it's like one of those weird conflicting things where you like, you know, you love someone and you're thinking like, well, they would never really do it to me. But then it was like, well, that was just like, well, you know, the threats, you know, threatening to beat the shit out of you, which was an often thing. You know what I mean?
Not,
you know, but it was like, well, he's not doing it. You know, so that's fine. And I was just like an idiot, you know, and it was like, you know, getting threatened. And then it was like, okay, well, but then he didn't really slap me. So it's like, you know, just like a, you know, and it's like, justification. So like a justification. And then, oh, but he, you know, he didn't really hurt me. Like, yeah, my back hurts a little bit, but it's really not that bad. Like I'm tough. And it's just like kept going. I was like, well, like, when does it stop? Or, you know, at what point does it change? Or, you know, does it change? You know, when, of course, I think, yeah, of course, he's never going to go any further. You know, like, he loves me.
Well, not to mention, like, the cheating is putting you at risk, too. I mean,
oh, yeah, he was just,
that's the thing. But that's the hard part is it's like, I mean, I think I had asked this question, like, it's still hard for you, right? To, you know, we talked about that, like, to even, like, you drew the line, you finally walked away, but it's still a decision you still kind of have to make. In that relationship, because it is hard, like, to walk away from somebody that you know love, and
it's so hard when you leave someone, not, you know, just because you're like just sad and you're like depressed and you feel like I changed as a person. I remember one of my friends told her boyfriend, you know, if you'd have met me before him, like, you would have seen a different person. Like, I was so vibrant and I was so outgoing and wild and crazy. And then it was like at the end of him with me, I was crying. I don't know a day that I didn't cry. I used to like smoke Arabic tobacco, the little pipe tobacco. That's like, I don't know. I would chain smoke it when I would just stay up till, you know, if he'd go missing in the middle of the night, the second I woke up, I knew clubs close at 2:00. He should be home by 2:30, 3:00. 3:00 hits. My brain's wide awake. I'm up chain smoking Arabic tobacco and having a Red Bull, waiting up, thinking he's going to come home. And I went to hotels in the middle of the night thinking that, you know, I just became this like insane person. And I was just thinking, for what purpose? And then it was thinking like, well, then we'd come home. It would be a huge fight. Everything would be wild and crazy. I would be called a psycho, and then I need to be put in an insane asylum. And it was like, and I honestly, I probably did need to be at that point, because I was thinking like, you're making me absolutely like the person that I'm not, you know? And then it was just, you know, the weird, odd threats that would be odds and ends that I would think like, oh, they're harmless. And I don't know, but I just accepted so much shit. And I never thought I was going to be that person. Like, I was, my family spoiled me. I was, you know, I've been blessed that I've had not only good parents, but good step parents, multiple step parents on all sides. You know, it's like, I've been really blessed that I've had loving mothers, loving fathers. my siblings and I, we all got along. There was, it's like, I was spoiled. And so I never thought like, oh, like, I felt like if there was something leading up to me being used to a toxic relationship, even like my exes before that, like, okay, yeah, we were young and dumb maybe, but never anything like crazy and toxic, and then this came by and it was just like, I don't know what happened, and just to accept things like that made me feel, I was so guilty. I didn't tell my parents about it for a long time. I didn't tell my friends about most of it. Some of it they knew about because I had some roommates that lived with me, and they kind of like, I don't know, I guess 2 of the roommates, it's like they kind of saw things probably more than the other ones, but it was just like one of those, like, people didn't expect it. Like, he seemed like a nice guy, and he was the friend, the fun one that everyone was, and some of them were friends with him before they met me. Right. And then afterwards they were like, whoa, that was crazy. But then everyone just chalked it up to, you guys were toxic together.
Domestic violence is not just discriminatory across.
Yeah. And that's crazy is I've heard girls talk about it where I ran into one girl once, and it was like nobody believed her because he was the fun, nice guy that everyone's friends with, and he wouldn't be like that. Right. And that was the crazy part, was like hearing that, and I was like, well, I've been there. You know what I mean? Like, one of my friends didn't believe me once. She was just thinking that I was being drama until she moved in with me, and then she was like, well, never mind. And I was like, I felt some validation at least, where I was thinking like, okay, I'm not crazy. Or with the more confirmation you got, that was the weird thing about like with cheating especially, is that, when you actually find out the facts, and it was like having that breath of fresh air where you're like, I'm not crazy. They make you feel crazy, and they make you feel, and that's where I thought the thing that I wanted to talk about, though I didn't talk about before, and I thought was that I was also aggressive. I've never been the type to be upset in a relationship and slap someone, right, or push someone, you know what I mean? Like, in none of the previous relationships did I ever once do anything like that. But with him, I had slapped him before, and I've been shoving him, and it was like, who was that? Like and that's where I thought that, like, again, another one, well, I pushed him to that point. I would shove him and say, and okay, maybe my shoves weren't necessarily hard, and, mine were probably more dainty, emotional, like trying to get some sympathy or whatever it may be, pity, pushing him away from a door or trying to hold on to him. But there was one time I did which I was not gonna lie, I was blacked out drunk, and apparently I hit him, but I don't remember any of it. And that was like an embarrassing thing for me, was to wake up the next day and for my friends to tell me that I hit him. And I was so embarrassed of it. And to go to the club later on, and people were making jokes like, and I was mortified of it, and then after that, I let people walk all over me, even, people saying things to me, because I was like, oh, well, I don't want people to think I'm that person that like gets aggressive and crazy. And, I didn't want to have a bad reputation of being that crazy girl. So I would let people say some things to my face that I would never accept any other time. But because I was like, well, this is what happens. So I'm just gonna like turn the other cheek from now on, and from him and from everyone,
So what was the final straw for that relationship? What did it take for you to be done with that?
I was supposed to take a trip with a friend, and I think it was a couple weeks before, maybe a few weeks before, I caught him in the middle of the night. I had looked at his phone the next day, and there were text messages of him and another girl from a hotel room, and that he had basically, there was a fight between them. I don't know exactly what it was. And I ended up messaging the girl and being like, this is my boyfriend. Like, did he stay in the hotel room with you? And she then like blew up like, oh, I'll tell your girlfriend to stop talking to me. And then I just told her, I said, woman to woman, if it was the reverse, that I would want you to, or I would tell you the truth. And then she just blew me up, telling me everything, telling me we should meet for coffee. And I was like, look, I don't want to be your friend. I just need some straight facts. And after that, it kind of hit me that, I caught him so many times, and he's not going to change. And it's like, I thought all this investment in us getting an apartment together and all these like life plans and planning marriage, that it was like going to change something. And then I kept like looking the other way every time you'd lie about it. And this one time, I don't know, it just kind of hit me where I was like, he's not going to change. And so we broke up, and I was there about 6 months, and I wasn't necessarily mentally strong. I really wasn't okay, but I was doing better. And I was finally like kind of getting myself. And then I came home on vacation and I decided I probably needed to move, that I was going to keep going back to him. It wasn't necessarily that I was like, oh, I'm a strong person, I'm not going to go back. I was like, I guarantee I was still talking to him. I was still texting him. He was still in and out of the apartment. And if I would have stayed, which I mean, I wasn't like talking to him, but it's like, I still accepted communication, you know, like, oh, I need to come by and I need to pick up this, or, oh, I left this at the apartment. You know, it was like those little tiny things to like just keep some type of hold, you know. But when I decided, I was like, I probably need to move, because I would have gone back to him 100 times.
Right. Yeah.
Embarrassingly so. Like, I know people want to be like, yeah, I'm a strong woman, I wouldn't go back to that shit. You know what? Like, sometimes people are a bit judgy about that kind of stuff. Like, I had a girl once tell me, this is when I said I had to accept things. I had a girl, she was weasel. She came up to me in the club once and she's like, I admire you so much. And I was like, you know, one of those weird, like, why is she saying this to me? And I was like, yeah, why? She's like, I could never accept back a man who cheated on me. And I remember I was just fucking shaking, like my body. I think my friend said my eyes are red. Like, I just, you know, I just kind of was pouring my drink and just turned myself around again, because I didn't want to appear to be crazy. But this is where people are so, you know, some people don't get it. Like, it's not that I wanted to, you know, be that person. It was just like something changed inside of me, or something was wrong in my head to where I would have gone back 100 times. And if I didn't leave, I was going to keep going.
Right. I'm really glad that, well, I think that you bring that up about being able to, like, you knew it yourself enough that you had to forcibly remove yourself physically. I mean, actually to another country at that point, right? To another country in order to do that. And it's like, I've been in relationships where, you know, it was ended for me. And I, you know, it was that sort of maybe desperate situation, hadn't escalated physically or anything, but like, looking back, knowing that I would never have been able to make that decision. Like, I could have easily have seen that fall into that way. And so, you know, I look at women where it's like, they know themselves enough that even though it's there, you know, they still love this person. They know that it's completely toxic. And so to be able to just be like, okay, no, I have to get away, or I'm going to keep coming back. It's not going to be, you know. And so I remember admiring that, just the fact that you can make the decision to step away yourself, you know. So, and
it's like, it was nice, you know, coming home after so long, and I was thinking, you know, I should give it a shot. And, you know, I obviously knew I was mentally not healthy. You know, I was like, I'm not okay. Even after the breakup, like, you know, not only did I know I wasn't going to go, like, I would probably end up going back. It would have just taken the one right moment for him to, you know, get back in there, you know. But it was also just like my mental health. I was just thinking, like, yeah, there's never going to be a way to be around the person, even not together, and stay healthy. Right. You know, it's like, not necessarily going to have to be with him. It was just going to be, even him around me, I was always going to be swayed in some way, you know?
Yeah. And you weren't going to change him.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the, well, actually, no, you know what? We can pull off with both. What is a takeaway or something that you've learned from the rickshaw experience that has changed how you are with martial arts?
Well, now I would love to be a lot better. I think it's just, now it's kind of, I guess it's more important now to feel a bit, well, feel more confident, you know. I think then I wasn't confident and I still did something. And I feel like now it's like, at least feeling like I know maybe a little bit better. I mean, I still don't know shit, but in comparison to like long sleeve, what everyone else knows, but it's just like still feeling like there's a little bit of confidence there. And maybe that confidence, maybe it's not necessarily the moves that'll win, but maybe it's some type of confidence, or it's maybe just enough confidence to get me to be able to run.
Right.
You know,
the ability to move.
The ability to move. Yeah.
What have you learned in regards to self-defense and how you approach it now? And even throw in the domestic situation too, mentally, if you want to put it in there.
Yeah, that one's a hard one. I mean, I would love to say that I would do something now, but God forbid that I get with the wrong man ever again. I kept the worst dates apparently. But I guess now, it's, you surround yourself with people who like know things, and yet they can be such peaceful and loving and kind people. And then it's funny that the people who don't even know anything are the ones to like, what do they call that? Throw some fists or, whatever. And I guess it would be, with a relationship side of it, that maybe one day, if God forbid again, if I ever get back into a toxic relationship, that not only would I have like the confidence to leave, and also be surrounding myself with people. It's like, okay, there are people who know things and they still have the self-control not to do it, versus Billy Bob over here who doesn't know anything and he's still willing to do it. It's like maybe kind of recognizing like there are good people who actually know things. And it's like there is a level of self-control, and there's nothing acceptable about laying your hands on a woman. Right. So it's like knowing that, one, I could leave, and also two, that hopefully maybe next time I wouldn't freeze up, and then maybe I would do something about it, at least to let him know that's not okay.
And like recognize like where you draw your lines in the first place. Like,
oh yeah,
if that's, you've seen these red flags and you're like, nope. Let's not even go this far.
I should maybe see the red flags ahead of time. Because I think I did see a ton of red flags that I probably just turned a blind eye to out of love. And there's that meme, and I think I told you about it, where it was, you should never accept, so many red flags. And it was like, well, I don't do that, but you definitely should, And it was like one of those, like, we all say like, oh, those are red flags. Like, yeah, I would never do that. And then it's like, we're there, we don't do it, But I think I would hopefully be able to see the red flags now a lot more, just kind of everything taken out of it,
I think there is a lot of judgment on, like, you see people where it's like with women, they're like, well, why doesn't she just leave? And it's like, it is that situation of they are so far down. It's not a physical thing. It takes so much to step away. Like, and so it's, I remember like I taught a woman in karate, and she'd come from a domestic violence situation, and it took like one time for her to actually just stand back up for herself. And that's what caused him to back off. Like, and then he once he realized he couldn't bully her anymore, that she was going to be the one to fight back, then that was it. He had no power over her anymore. And, she divorced him obviously and all this stuff, but it was just crazy because but that step of like, there's so much fear, and it's not even that. I mean, you're a lot of times, especially if kids are involved or something like this, am I taking, now I've seen divorce court and it's just a nightmare, like, and so there's a threat of, oh, I could lose my kids, or, all sorts of stuff. And just to, so there's so many factors and variables that I can see. And so it's like, that's where I was like, there's got to be ways of drawing lines and teaching women to see these red flags on the front side. Yeah. Like, how do we don't have to wait until, they're 23 and in just this crappy relationship where
mm-hmm.
they're not recognizing it and they're still justifying it to themselves. And
they are smart, it's like, I mean, obviously you love someone. It's not because, I wouldn't say that I necessarily was scared of him or anything. He could be so loving and fun and outgoing and kind. And, we'd have these conversations. It would just be these weird moments where he would just flip. And then I would suddenly be like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit scared. Like, I would back off on things that normally I'd be like, this is, but then suddenly I'd be like, well, maybe I made the wrong. But then other times I would be aggressive back. And it was, so I mean, both of our personalities would change. And it's like noticing the red flags, but sometimes it was like, how do you even recognize them, especially when people are so charismatic and can be so mm-hmm. kind. And the way he would treat his friends was amazing. He would do anything for his friends. It was that there was so, even some of the conversations we would have this internal kindness that would just be like, you thinking like, well, how is this coming right now in this conversation about somebody else or about, whatever it may be. And then suddenly there's been drinking or there's not been drinking, and there's a huge fight and he turns into a different person. Right. You know what I mean? And it was just like, I couldn't, and you always think, well, it's going to be probably the last time. Like, we won't fight like this again. We're going to work on it. We're going to be healthy. And well, yeah, I don't know what that was. So I don't know. I don't know where the red flags even start, you
Yeah.
know? And that's like, I guess the hard thing.
All right. And knowing what you know now in martial arts, there's that fly that's running around there. What would you pick as the most imperative martial art for women to learn to defend themselves the fastest?
Oh, it's like I used this time last time. I didn't want to like pick one, you know, because you feel bad. You're like, I don't want to down on anyone. But I thought about it, and it's like strength of men versus women. And I know people are gonna be like, this is not a very feminist thing to say, but like a woman throwing a punch and a man throwing a punch could be a very different thing. And I'm sure there's some awesome women out there who throw great punches. I'm not one of them. So I think like with boxing, even kickboxing, like kicking someone or punching someone, I don't really feel like it's this. And then I thought about the other part of it was that for a lot of women, most attacks are probably in a more sexual nature, and most of the time the man is going to want to get them down. And so I think like if you can escape on the ground, and so I would therefore choose jujitsu.
That's one of the things, like if I had, I'm very much of and I was extremely anti-jujitsu. Like I can't even begin, like there was none of that. And the first time that I had ever like, it was Aaron actually. And I went to go do this extreme close quarters concepts. It was a gun course, and I was going to end up in this, what's called an evolution. And so I ended up like rolling around, and we had a sim gun, and, we shot each other with it. And I was with this, and Aaron, it was before we went. And so I'd kind of told him what I was going to do. And I'm like, I'll be fine. He's like, no, really, let me show you a couple of things. And I'm like, I don't need to know. And so Aaron showed me like just two very basic, like extremely basic stuff. And those were the two things that I ended up using. And in order to even like be able to escape, because that's what happened, is I ended up on the ground. And it's like, there's all sorts of like, I always hear this too, because it's like, oh, well, if you do this, you won't end up on the ground. Oh, okay, great. There's curbs. Most of these things can happen in your house. So there's furniture. It's not going to necessarily be the assailant that's, getting you. It could be you trip over your own feet and you end up there and they pounce, I can't think of like, it's very rare that there's like one time that I haven't ended up in some way, if I'm in this altercation, like where I'm not on the ground. It didn't even take much for them to like, basically just pick me up and whatever. So I'm like, I came back from ECQC and I was like, crap, I had to eat a bunch of crow. And I was like, I guess I need to know this stuff now. And so, I'm very big, on definitely, jujitsu from a self-defense standpoint, not just go into like, a gym and be like, let's do it for competition.
It's not like I can be like, I'm going to like get my potential rapist and do an arm bar. You're just like trying to get out from under him.
Exactly.
Like that's like the main thing is like, I just want to get away. And so I think that if you're on the ground, the best thing to know is at least try to get out of it. I guess that would be my take on
with as much damage to them as possible and not you.
With as much damage as possible,
Do you wish you would have started training sooner? Always.
I feel like, it's like, okay, or I would have been more consistent. To be honest, I regret that there were times that I either just got lazy or that I felt embarrassed, when you take time off and you're like, oh, I got to come back. They're going to like judge me for being like taking some time off. And like with the one ex, he didn't want me doing jujitsu. And I didn't. I stuck around for a little bit. I remember we'd tracking apps on the phones, of course, because you know how crazy we were. And I remember I was lying and saying that I was at a client's when I was actually at jujitsu. And then when I started getting scared that he was going to find out, I quit again. And it was just those little things I wish I would have been so consistent. And maybe that I would have made a difference now, instead of like taking times off and thinking like, oh, I'll just do stand up instead, or I'll do a little bit of jiu-jitsu and then I'll just stand up. And I wish I would have just from 15 on, like turned into a monster.
Well, it's weird because like I was just talking to my friend Elle. She's a jiu-jitsu instructor over at Toss Academy. And she was telling me, and that's literally like, and even Aaron, I think, said it too a couple of times, like that's the first thing to go with women is like, if they're training and they get a boyfriend, boom, are out. And it's like,
true.
but even for moms too, like, you know, you can get like a mom will get in there and I get it. Like it's hard to balance that stuff, you know, like, I don't know how we would do it if my kids were involved. Like it has to be literally a family affair, but it's like, you know, that's the first thing to go because life will get hard. And then it's like, nope, I got to take this out.
Yeah.
You know, and that's simplifying.
But it's so awesome. I think that you have like a very like supporting husband and like, you know, that you guys like do this shit together. Cause like, I'm not gonna lie, I've not really had a boyfriend that's thought it's okay for me to roll on the ground with another guy. Not that one yet.
You know what's funny though?
You know, I just don't think they like it.
I really appreciate him, especially when we go, because I've been in a position where he's come home from a class and he's told me about like a person that he rolled with, a woman that he rolled with. And I met her the next week. And I remember being thankful that it was him that rolled with her because she was kind of intimidated, which it is. It's a scary flippant environment to go in a co-ed, you know. But I remember being so grateful for him because I know how he is when he rolls and he knows how to dial stuff. He knows how to dial things back. He knows how to not just be like the one ape that gets up there and just crushes your chest. Like he's very good about being respectful. And so I just very much like, so I'm grateful for him because it's like, he's not ever going to be that one person that just like changes it. And he's never going to be the person that the girl doesn't come back. You know? Yeah.
Honestly, that I've been at TCB. This is like the greatest thing is that I've never once with any single person that's been a member of TCB ever felt uncomfortable once.
Nope.
I've only had one time that I felt uncomfortable and it was not a member at TCB. It was someone who came from another gym and he decided to put me in he had a hold of my foot. He was going to break my fucking ankle. And he told me that you need to tap sweetheart. And then I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to tap. I'm just going to let him break my ankle. You know, and I remember the coach, you know, I was like, I just fuck it, I'm done. You know, and I was just like, so, you know, I was like,
bite your toe off.
Yeah. And I remember just being like so appalled by being called sweetheart. And I was just, you know, my ego and my, you know, just like, cause you're a girl and you're thinking like, wow, someone thinks that like low of me.
Thanks, honey.
You know? And it was just like, I remember I was thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna let him do it. And I remember just like, I'm not gonna tap. And I remember it was just so painful. And luckily when the coach stopped and was like she would have fucking tapped. Like if you just not called her sweetheart, you know, she was going to, but you just fucking pushed your buttons, you know? Yeah. And that was like literally one person out of TCB, you know what I mean? Like, and that was not a member. That was someone who came in and it was completely separate. And I don't know who he is, but I still like him to this day. I held a grudge.
No, it's wild for anybody too that is concerned because I've traveled and like done jujitsu with like lots of different gyms across the United States, and I can think of maybe there was I've been in classes that I didn't enjoy being in that I was surprised and that there was a certain aggression because there are a lot like you can roll with men and then there's this they handle it one of two ways. They're either oh man, I'm gonna have to edit this out. It's gonna be bad. Fly.
Like, who am I gonna offend?
Who am I gonna offend?
Who am I gonna piss off today?
Maybe there's like three groups of guys. There's the ones that are just, they genuinely care and they're there and they want to help you. And then there's the ones that you're a female and you cannot win. So they don't know how to dial it back. Like my husband's not like that at all. He's not gonna win by force. He wants to win by a technical stuff, not just like, let me be the ape that's, you know, laying on your chest that's 100 pounds heavier. Like, and then there's the ones that are just like, you know,
actual apes. They don't know what they're doing.
And then actual apes, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know that they're being rough with you. So I mean, and it is hard, but I've never dealt with anybody being sexual in any way. I've never dealt with and ever like, and that one has been like, they've usually just been more like aggressive and jerkish, you know? And then, so that's never been an issue, even in the awkward positions too. Like,
you'd think that there's like something
and I'm like, so that's never happened. And then, but even like I've never had to deal with that. And
I think that's what's weird that people like assume. Like I remember whenever I had girls that I was saying like I'm doing jiu-jitsu, and I think they think that there's gonna be it's weird. I think they assume that there has to be something sexual about it because you're rolling on the ground with someone, and it's like it's not.
Oh no, because you're not thinking that. You're thinking like this guy's
it.
gonna smash me.
Yeah, it's
gonna be horrible.
Yeah, you're just thinking like it's just the weird things that you're thinking, like, I don't know, like you talk, it's funny because you're talking about like, yeah, we're like rolling on the ground, I'm getting choked, and people are like, that sounds really sexual. And you're like, it's not.
Yeah, it really isn't. You're not thinking any of that. Like I've been in like where I'm like, oh man, I've had my, hit something precarious or something. And I worried more that I like hurt the guy. I'm like, oh, are you wearing a cup?
Oh, that's the worst. It's like the worst feeling in the world is like actually like hitting someone and you're just like, oh, like as like I remember the first time when I started, I was like, I don't know if it was just like guys who not like rolled with girls before. I remember but I remember it was like, when you're trying to get like double underhooks, it was like they're terrified to touch my breasts, like you gotta go like way out there to get there, and it was like, even if you're like clamped down in a sports bra, that you could just feel that they were like a little bit like, I don't want to do something wrong, and like sexual harassment. And it was like finally this being like, look, like it's not gonna bother me. Like if it's an accident, like I get it. It's like you're not full like, it's like you're just like trying to get into it. It's not sexual, It's just the weirdest like things I remember, like this little tiny things.
But I do think it says something that it's like the aggression is the thing I've encountered more, not anybody being being sexual. Right? And even I'm not even thinking that the moves are weird, like, and they are weird positions. Like you're in like, oh gosh.
Yeah, like
but I mean, you're
thinking like,
my legs are wrapped around this other guy. But you're not thinking that. I'm sitting here going, you're thinking about your next, what you're trying to do, how you can, get out. In my case, it's usually they're inside control and I'm just stuck there forever. That's usually.
I'm just like, oh, fuck. It is a funny thing, isn't it? I don't know. I never really thought about it for a long time about like, I mean, I know I always understood when people like kind of made me weird questions, but I was thinking like, what goes through my head when I'm doing jiu-jitsu? And I'm just thinking like, literally either it's something like technique or it's just, like I think it's my version of yoga, because, you think about like when you're doing something and you're only focusing on technique or you're only focusing on like trying to get something, it's like everything in the world, everything else in the world fades away,
Right.
And I think that's like a wonderful thing. Like some people do meditation, but I feel like that one's like one for me. That's like, when I leave, it's like my whole day is just like, oh, thank God. Like,
oh yeah. I was feel better.
I just feel better.
Well, and I've been in, and this is the hard part too, because I was one of those people that thought like there was no way that you were going to get me to roll around with another man that was not my spouse, like ever. And in fact, Ryan has had friends that have asked him, like, you're totally okay with your wife doing that, and so it is a weird, and because I remember like, I wasn't going to do that. I remember the first time, like, and Aaron actually was the first person that I had ever rolled with. And so I remember going, oh, okay. And I was totally comfortable with it after that. Like, it was just like, I mean, it's not fun. The first time
you're just getting your ass handed to you and you're just like, oh.
But I mean, it was just like, so for women basically out there that are like, oh, have a little bit of trepidation for it and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
it's
normal.
Weird.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's not weird. It is weird.
It's
weird. You feel weird sometimes. You're in some weird positions. Yeah, sometimes you get like sprawled out of it weird. For me, I drive all the way from Joplin to TCB to train simply because it's like I feel comfortable. Like I know it's a good place to train and I feel comfortable with everyone. I can be rolling around like on the mat and I don't feel like, oh, something's weird here. You know what I mean? And there might be other places that are fantastic and I would feel comfortable at, but it's just like, for me, I'm just like, I pick my spot. So I just stick there.
So that was my last question. Then what advice would you offer women searching for reliable self-defense right now?
Find some place that you're comfortable. Yeah. That you feel like if you do want to roll all around on the ground or you feel like you do want to learn defense and stuff, it's just feeling where you're comfortable and you feel like you'd go back to, like she said, like if someone's like a group with you and is just completely like made your first day miserable, then obviously
try somewhere else.
Yeah, try somewhere else.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I came back after how long have I not trained at TCB? And within the first day, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to come back, and then I've just come full on. It's like I haven't even had a question of a doubt. The only time I skip is like if I have something from work. It's like I want and I'm excited to train every day. And if you find someplace that you don't feel excited about, then you definitely shouldn't do it. And then also, I guess just like, I mean, that was also one of the things that made me choose TCB again, is driving so far, just to come to the gym and drive back. I did look at places somewhere else, but I think it is worth listening to reputations. Whenever I called on some place, not called them, but called some people that I knew that did these kind of things, and I asked about the places, I had feedback, and some of the feedback I didn't like. Some of the people were all about trophies. Some of the people were, what do you call that? Like when you're like, there's like garage fighters that go and do like MMA fights.
Oh.
That's why, I don't know how to explain it, but like those places where you feel like they're like old backwoods, like, oh, let's go do some MMA and wear tap out shirts. Yeah. And then when I hear about that kind of stuff, I'm like, meh. And then when I just thought about it, and I was like, why should I even care about like driving an hour? I know TCB has a good reputation, and I trust the people. And I think that was what kept me coming back, and hopefully will keep me coming back forever. Hopefully I don't get all Fiat and CSC like later and stay home, drink Prosecco and eat cupcakes. Just keep training.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this twice.
Twice.
I suck at
I'm just enjoying the wine,
technical stuff.
I'll come back. You want to do it again?
We're doing number 3 and we don't have it.
Round 3.
There we are.